Hey, I expected you to be smarter, lady, Mark said with a mean look, leaning back in his chair. You're married to Nick, but you're not very good at stuff. Nick had a rough marriage with you, Mark laughed. Now give me the checkbook. If you don't, we're splitting up. Fine, but you'll be sorry, I replied. Mark didn't seem to get what I meant. He just grinned and said, No, I won't. Mark seems to have gotten it all wrong. I've got a plan to keep him from getting his hands on Nick's money. I'm Karen, 35 years old. My life was happy until 3 years ago when my husband, Nick, died in a car crash. Since then, I've been heartbroken and struggling to move on. Mark, who was Nick's best friend, has been a huge support. He took me out, suggested movies, and did everything to help me feel better. Thanks to him, I started to heal. Now, 3 years later, I'm thankful for Mark's kindness. But then Mark surprised me one day by proposing. Karen, will you marry me? He asked. I know it's complicated because of Nick, but don't you think it's time to focus on your own happiness? It's been 3 years since Nick's passing, and I feel like I've finally started to heal, thanks largely to Mark's support. I hadn't seriously thought about moving on until now, maybe because of the guilt I felt towards Nick. But when Mark proposed, something clicked. Could being with Mark bring happiness to both of us, and even to Nick? I'll make you happy, for both of us, including Nick, Mark promised, looking me in the eye. I chose to believe him. Okay, I trust you. Thank you. And so, I agreed to marry Mark. At first, married life with Mark was great. Following his wishes, I became a homemaker and focused on taking care of the household. Mark would always message me after work, eager to know what's for dinner and rush home. Even though it was my second marriage, our early days together were filled with happiness. Mark often pitched in with chores on his days off, and there were no complaints. I hoped this blissful life would continue. Things took a turn for the worse after about 6 months. It was around 11 p.m. when Mark finally got home. You're late again. I've asked you to let you know when you'll be late, I reminded him. Got invited out suddenly, he brushed it off. What could I do? You could have just gone to bed, and texting would have been enough. I need to get dinner ready, it's not that big of a deal. Stop nagging as soon as I walk in, he snapped, heading straight to the bathroom. He's been coming home late a lot lately, not just today. And there's no communication from him, not even a call or text. He says he's at a work event, but I wonder if he really needs to go, especially on his days off. He doesn't help with chores anymore. You should at least pitch in on your days off, I tell him. He doesn't bother to respond, saying, Why should I work on my days off? That's your job. Figure it out yourself. But the biggest worry is our finances. Mark gets me what's left of his salary after his own expenses, but lately, that amount keeps getting smaller. This month, it was significantly less. When I asked about it, Mark casually said, Oh, I gave some to my mom, that's why. How much did you give her? Around $1,000? I questioned, feeling frustrated. $1,000? I already said last month that giving her $800 was too much. We can't afford to be so generous. I insisted, my tone becoming firmer. If you subtract your allowance from that, we won't have enough for our own expenses. If she says she needs it, there's nothing I can do. Use your savings to cover the difference, Mark replied casually. What do you mean by or something? Why don't you find a part-time job or something? You're always just lounging around at home. You should do some work, I fired back. I became a full-time homemaker at Mark's request. His harsh words shocked me. But I realized we needed extra income to make ends meet. Reluctantly, I started looking for a job. Luckily, I found a part-time job with short hours, so it didn't interfere much with my routine. One day, I came home late from work to find the front door unlocked. Peering inside, I saw Mark was already home. Mark, you're back already? I exclaimed, surprised to find him at home. He spun around with a start, hastily concealing something behind his back. Hey, what were you just hiding? I asked, suspicion creeping in. Nothing, just forget about it. Mark quickly dismissed, but I wasn't convinced. You were hiding something. I persisted, snatching something from Mark's hand and realizing it was my bank book. What were you doing with this? I demanded, feeling a surge of anger. Just checking something. Give it back, Mark said, trying to take it from me. You've saved up quite a bit, huh? I had no idea, he remarked, flipping through the pages. You always say we're short on money, I argued, feeling betrayed. What's going on? All this money should go to my mom, Mark stated casually, interrupting me. Huh? That's not. I began, shocked by his bold request. It's only right to give such a large amount to my mom, he insisted, acting like it was the most reasonable thing ever. Why should I give your mom my money? I objected, feeling my anger rise. Since when is the wife's money the mother-in-law's money? Don't you know that? Give me the bank book now, he demanded, his tone getting more aggressive. No way. This money is mine, I declared, holding onto the bank book tightly. I fled from Mark, who was trying to snatch the bank book from me, and locked myself in the bedroom. While Mark banged on the door, demanding the bank book, I couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal and anger. As I wrestled with what to do next, the only solution that seemed clear was to divorce Mark. I wondered, if Nick were here, what would he advise? The thought of Nick's absence hit me hard, and I couldn't help but cry. That money had to stay away from Mark, no matter what. I swiftly stashed the bank book in a locked suitcase and waited for Mark to come back. But he didn't return that day. Night fell, and I drifted off to sleep. When I woke the next morning, Mark still hadn't returned. With a clearer head than the night before, I knew I couldn't keep living like this. I refused to hand over the bank book to Mark. He had insulted not only me but also Nick. I couldn't forgive him. Gathering only the essentials, I waited for Mark's return. Finally, when he did show up, he seemed surprised to find me awake. Where have you been? I questioned, my voice steady but firm. I went to my parents' place. Just came back from the real estate agent, he answered casually. The real estate agent? With your $300,000? I asked, my suspicion growing. I bought a new house for my mom. It's a brand new single-family home, Mark declared proudly, expecting me to go along with it. Huh? Give me the bank book now. If not, we're getting a divorce, he demanded, his tone becoming stern. I get it. Oh. Are you talking about splitting up? That's okay with me, I said calmly, surprising Mark. Wait, what? Mark was shocked, not expecting me to be so okay with it. Did he think I'd just give him access to our money if he mentioned divorce? All right, but you'll be sorry, I warned. When I said that, Mark probably didn't understand what I really meant. He just smirked and said sure, whatever. Anyway, I went to the bedroom to grab the bags I'd packed. Mark was wrong if he thought he'd get half of our stuff. Around $15,000, but he was wrong. There was no way he'd get that much money from me. But just letting him off easy for insulting Nick wasn't enough. I came up with a better plan. It would teach Mark a lesson if he experienced what he put others through. I put my bank book back in the kitchen drawer, grabbed my bags, and said, I'll send you the divorce papers later. Don't mess with my stuff. I'll move it when I can. Mark seemed suspicious of my careful planning, but I left anyway. I booked a room in a nearby business hotel and decided to stay there for about a week. During my time at the hotel, I found a rental apartment that was good for living alone. After sorting out the rental agreement, I started moving right away. I came back to the house while Mark was out in the afternoon to move my stuff. When I checked the bank book I left in the drawer, money had been taken out, leaving $150,000 behind, just like I expected. Mark probably used half for himself and bought a new house for his mom, but he regretted it later. I got the divorce papers from City Hall, filled them out, and sent them to Mark. But even after a week, then 2 weeks, they hadn't reached City Hall. And I couldn't reach Mark on the phone. After nagging him for a while, Mark finally answered, sounding annoyed. Can you hurry up and send the divorce papers to City Hall? Divorce papers? Oh, I'll send them in next week, I said casually. And you took money from my bank account, didn't you? That's illegal without my permission, Mark accused. Idiot. It's not illegal to take money from a family member's account. Plus, half of it would be mine after the divorce, so it's fair. I'm hanging up now, I said firmly, and I ended the call. Later on, it seemed Mark had finally sent the divorce papers to City Hall. When I checked, Mark and I were officially divorced. A month later, I was at work. The place where I worked part-time was offering full-time positions, and I applied. They accepted me. I heard some noise near the entrance, so I went to see what was happening. To my surprise, Mark and his mom were arguing with the receptionist. I rushed over and asked, "What's going on?" When I spoke, they turned to me urgently. Karen, we've been searching for you. Please listen, Mark begged. Please, Karen, forgive us, his mom added, sounding shaky. As they began to argue loudly, I somehow managed to calm them down. I told my boss about the situation, and we decided to talk things out at a nearby cafe. What's going on? I asked, feeling uneasy about the surprise encounter. With worried expressions, they started to explain frantically about the money. I withdrew money from your account. It turns out it doesn't count as marital property. That money is. Mark's voice trailed off, and I let out a huge sigh of disbelief. That's what I've been saying all along. That was my own money. It was the life insurance payout when Nick passed away. We didn't know. We're really sorry. We'll try to give the money back somehow. Can you not cause a big scene about this? Mark pleaded. You're right. You wouldn't want this blown out of proportion either, right? I replied, feeling frustrated and resigned. Let's settle this peacefully. Is that all you came to say? As soon as I said that, their faces turned frantic. Just that. I already figured it out when you took the money from the bank. How did you manage it? Don't tell me you think I didn't notice. I pressed on. Well, we had to do it because we needed the money, Mark stammered, clearly struggling to explain. Here's what likely happened. You can't withdraw $150,000 all at once from an ATM. It would take too long. So they probably tried to withdraw it from the counter, but for large sums, a power of attorney from the account holder is needed. I guess my mother-in-law wrote that power of attorney and she probably pretended to be me when the bank called for confirmation. Essentially, my mother-in-law impersonated me. This is clearly illegal, and yet they were still trying to cover it up. There's no way I can forgive this, I said firmly, cutting off Mark's attempts to plead for forgiveness. Lawyers have been coming to the office, employees are staring, and my boss is asking questions. My job is on the line. If things get worse, I might have to quit, and I won't find another job easily. Please let's settle this without going to court, Mark begged, desperation clear in his voice. My husband told me we're getting a divorce. I was just dazzled by the idea of a new house. It was a rash decision. I did find solace in this man after Nick's death. Maybe I could forgive him if he was sincere, but he also insulted Nick. If not for that, things wouldn't have gone this far, I thought to myself, feeling torn. It's out of my hands now. Our next meeting will be in court, I declared, standing up to leave. Wait, Karen, please. Mark and his mother pleaded, kneeling in the cafe. But I ignored them and walked out. In the end, they were in the wrong, and they ended up facing a hefty lawsuit for me, leading to a significant debt for Mark and my former mother-in-law. The $150,000 withdrawn from my account was returned by my former father-in-law out of his own pocket. The new house they bought was sold off, but it only covered some of the cost. Mark, unfortunately, lost his job and struggled to find another one in this tough economy. He ended up working as a live-in security guard, surviving on cheap sandwiches and barely making ends meet while paying off his debt. My former father-in-law separated from my former mother-in-law, who now lives in a modest apartment and works part-time jobs to get by. On the other hand, I've been enjoying my life, working steadily on my job. Although I'm single again after the divorce, I see it as a fresh start. Recently, a kind and caring man has entered my life. I'm taking things slowly to avoid repeating past mistakes, but I can't help but feel hopeful about this new relationship.